I spent years grinding, hustling, and trying to force my life to change through sheer willpower. And all I got was burnout and the same results. But then I did something that goes against everything that our culture teaches about success. Well, the Western culture. I stopped putting effort into changing my circumstances and started putting effort in changing myself. That's when everything shifted overnight. Yes, I'm not exaggerating, overnight. Like, I'm talking about the kind of shift that makes you question everything you thought you knew about how reality actually works. And look, I used to be that person who thought self-care was selfish and personal development was just feel-good fluff for people who couldn't handle the real world. Okay, that was me. I was talking about taking massive action, working harder than everyone else, trying to muscle my way to success. And I kid you not, I would spend 12 hours a day trying to build my business, following every strategy. And honestly, I was proud of how hard I was working. That was back then. I wore my exhaustion like a badge of honor. I would brag about how little sleep I was getting, how many hours I was putting into my business, how busy I was, because busy meant important, right? But here's what's embarrassing. After years of this grind, I was still broke, still stressed, and still feeling like I was pushing a boulder uphill every single day, every single day. The worst part was that I was part of these masterminds, right? So I'm watching other people seem to effortlessly attract the exact opportunities that I was killing myself to create. They would casually mention wanting something and it would just appear. Meanwhile, I'm over here working 3 times harder and getting nowhere. I was basically the hardest working failure you've ever met. And I started thinking to myself, maybe I was just unlucky. Or maybe that success wasn't meant for people like me. Or maybe my dad was right. Maybe I should just go back to get a job. Maybe I was missing some secret gene that successful people had. Or maybe the universe just fucking hated me. Right? Deep down, I knew something was wrong with my approach. I was like a person trying to fill a bucket with a hole at the bottom. No matter how much water I poured, it never got full. That's when I realized something that completely flipped my world upside down. And I mean completely. Okay? Listen up. All that effort that I was putting into changing my external circumstances, it was like trying to change your reflection by changing the mirror. That's what it was like. But the real work, the work that actually creates lasting change, happens on the inside. When I finally started investing the same level of effort into my internal frequency, into clearing the distortions, the patterns, the lies that I've believed about myself, everything in my external world started shifting without me having to force it. And so today, you're going to get, well, what I'm going to share is exactly what happened when I stopped trying to change my life and started changing myself. Okay? Stopped changing my life and started changing myself. And how this one shift created more transformation than years of trying to externally hustle my way into a new reality. Because here's the thing. You are not trying to change your circumstances. You are trying to change the person who's creating those circumstances. And let me tell you, once you understand this, you'll never approach success the same way ever again. And I wasn't just working hard. I was working obsessively hard. I had morning routines, evening routines, weekend routines. I basically had a routine for having routines. And I was trying to micromanage my way to success. And it affected my meditation later on, that micromanagement, okay? But all this effort, external effort, taught me something important. I was exhausting myself trying to rearrange the outside world while completely ignoring the inside world that was actually creating my experience. Like a gardener who spent all day rearranging the flowers, but they never watered the roots, and then wondering why nothing was growing properly. That was me. But the real transformation happened when I realized that all my external effort was just sophisticated avoidance of the real work. Okay, guess what the real work is? Yep, leave it in the comments. I want to know, but I'm going to give you the answer. The real work is the internal work of becoming the person who naturally creates what I was trying so hard to force. And what I discovered is that when you invest effort into regulating your nervous system, clearing your distorted patterns, the identity interference patterns that may reside within you. And changing your identity frequency, your external world automatically reorganizes itself to match your internal state. Simple as that. So I want to break down exactly how I was trapped in external effort and why it was keeping me stuck. And this is going to call out the biggest trap that keep most people stuck in struggle mode. Because for years, I was putting all my effort into changing my circumstances, working harder, trying new strategies, pushing for different outcomes. But I was exhausting myself trying to rearrange the external world while my internal frequency remained unchanged. The change came when I realized that, hey, listen, if you've been feeling stuck, but you know you're capable of more, then I've got a few spots available for my one-on-one mentorship. And in this program, I'll personally guide you through my identity frequency mapping process to break through the patterns holding you back so you can create the results you've been chasing, whether that's more income, more freedom to spend time with your loved ones, physical healing, or finding that soul-led relationship, or finally living that dream life that you've been longing for. Now, I only work with a few clients a month to keep the quality of my services high and to give you my full attention. So spots tend to fill up very, very quickly. So if you are sick and tired of flawed manifestation techniques that are complex or don't even work and want simplicity, then book a call to speak with my team who have been personally guided by me. Link is in the description. Now back to the video. All of the external effort without internal alignment is just sophisticated struggle that keeps me stuck in the same patterns. So, and this was me. This was my life, okay? I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I would immediately check my phone for overnight emails. I would spend 2 hours on social media trying to build my personal brand and dive deep into 8 to 10 hours of what I called productive work. I was creating content, reaching out to potential clients, optimizing my website. I did that a lot. Studying my competitors, go to networking events, taking online courses, coaching, masterminds, basically running a one-person circus, except instead of entertaining people, I was exhausting myself. But here's what was really happening. I was on a hamster wheel of external activity. I was moving constantly, but I was actually getting nowhere. All that effort was just keeping me busy, not making me successful. And what I didn't understand is that my internal frequency was still broadcasting, I'm someone who has to struggle to succeed. So, no matter how much external effort I put in, reality kept reflecting that internal frequency back to me. And guess where I got that pattern from? From my failed business ventures beforehand. Okay, probably like 3 or 4 businesses that failed. So I was trying to create abundance while broadcasting scarcity, struggle. Trying to attract success while embodying struggle. And so this created what I called an exhaustion cycle. Meaning that the harder I worked externally, the more depleted I became internally. The more depleted I became, the more desperate I felt. Therefore, the more desperate I felt, the harder I worked. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. And so the trap is thinking that more external effort will eventually overcome internal resistance. But external effort without internal alignment is like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on, okay? You can press the gas as hard as you want, but you're gonna struggle to move forward and your engine's gonna fucking blow up. Engine means your internal state. Anyway, and this brings us to what actually creates lasting change, okay? Listen carefully, because this is where everything I thought I knew about success got turned upside down. So when you invest effort into regulating your nervous system, clearing the identity interference patterns, the stories, the lies, cultural programming that has been, encoded into you, and you change your identity frequency, your external world automatically reorganizes to match your internal state. So I stopped trying to force opportunities and started becoming the person who naturally attracts them. The effort shifted from pushing against reality to aligning with it. And the breakthrough moment came when I was completely exhausted from trying to force a business deal to work. And I had been chasing this potential client for months. Oh my God, I was jumping through hoops. I was lowering my prices, right? This is like signifying a lack of self-worth as it is. Basically doing everything except standing on my own hand to make it happen. And finally, I just gave up. But instead of allowing defeat, I decided to do something different. I took that energy that I'd been put into chasing external outcomes and redirected it inward. Because I was always into spirituality and stuff, okay? But in my meditations, I didn't try to manifest anything, but I meditated to just simply regulate my nervous system. And I began working on clearing old patterns and limiting beliefs. I invested in my own frequency instead of trying to manipulate external circumstances. And let me tell you, what I discovered is that when your nervous system is regulated and it's coherent, you naturally make better decisions, you communicate more effectively, confidently, you attract people who resonate with your energy. Because when I was in a frantic state, I would attract people who would want to take advantage of that frantic state. But when your nervous system is dysregulated like mine from constant external effort, you make decisions from stress, communicate from desperation, and like I said, attract people who match that chaotic frequency. I don't want none of that. This is what I call frequency calibration. Every moment you spend in meditation, every pattern you clear, every limiting belief you release is literally rewiring your electromagnetic signature in real time. When you invest effort into becoming coherent internally, you broadcast a signal to the quantum field that it can't ignore. Opportunities, people, circumstances start aligning with your new frequency automatically. Your external reality is like a mirror reflecting your internal state. So when you try to change the reflection by manipulating the mirror, you exhaust yourself and you get nowhere. But when you change what's being reflected, your internal frequency, the mirror automatically shows you something different. Okay? And this brings us to what true self-investment actually looks like, okay? But this is where most people get self-investment completely wrong, or self-love. Self-investment, self-love, self-care, okay? Self-care or personal development, it's frequency calibration. That's what it is. Going within internally. That's what it actually is. Every moment you spend in meditation, every pattern you clear, every limiting belief you release, you are literally rewiring your electromagnetic signature. So when you invest effort in becoming coherent internally, you are broadcasting a signal to the quantum field that it can't ignore. And I will never forget the first time I experienced what real frequency calibration felt like, okay? I woke up one morning and instead of spending my morning checking emails, planning my day, I spent an hour meditating and frequency mapping. I wasn't trying to manifest anything or achieve a specific outcome. No, I was investing effort into becoming coherent, releasing old patterns, beliefs, distortions, and elevating my frequency. And it was like tuning a guitar, okay? AKA the guitar or the instrument is my body. And I was bringing everything into harmony. By the time I finished, I felt completely different, okay? Not just relaxed or peaceful, but like I was operating from a different frequency entirely because my thoughts were clearer. My energy was stable. I felt naturally confident instead of having to pump myself up, right? Caffeine and motivational videos. That day, everything flowed differently. Conversations were more meaningful, opportunities appeared naturally, and I made decisions from clarity and firmness instead of confusion. It was like the world was responding to my new frequency. But here's what's really powerful. This wasn't just a one-day thing. Every time I invested effort into my internal frequency, the effects compounded. My baseline state started shifting permanently. Instead of having to constantly manage my external circumstances, I was creating the internal conditions that naturally generated the external results I wanted. And most people think, self-care, self-investment, self-love is bubble baths, spa days, facials with the girls, fishing with the boys. Like, those are nice things, but that's not frequency calibration. That's actually pleasure, okay? Real self-investment is doing a deep work in clearing patterns, regulating your nervous system, coming back to homeostasis, embodying your authentic frequency, returning to your infinite nature. What if that is like the difference between putting a band-aid on a wound and actually healing the wound? And this is what happens when you upgrade your electromagnetic signature through consistent internal investment in yourself. You're not just changing how you feel. You are changing the signal that you are broadcasting to reality moment after moment. Oh, The quantum field responds to coherent signals. Okay, remember that. The quantum field responds to coherent signals. When your internal frequency is chaotic from constant external effort, you get chaotic results. When your internal frequency is coherent from consistent self-investment, you get coherent results. If it's peaceful within, it's going to be peaceful without and externally. This is when you become naturally magnetic to your experiences that you desire, because you're not just chasing opportunities. They start appearing because you are broadcasting the same frequency that attracts them. Damn. And this brings us to the deepest level of self-investment. The shift happened when I realized that investing effort into myself through identity frequency wasn't selfish. Whether it's identity frequency mapping, meditation, hypnosis, whatever it is to love yourself, okay? That is the most powerful thing you could do for your reality. When you clear interference, distortions, and return and embody your true frequency, you don't just change your life. Listen to this. You become a beacon that elevates everyone around you. So self-investment becomes reality investment because you are the source of your experience. That's right, you're that awesome. And the deepest transformation happened when I did my own identity frequency mapping work on myself, where I identified all these lacking, limiting beliefs that kept me stuck in external effort mode. And it's, sorry, Dad, but it all came from you. My dad had a program of having to work hard for money. But I also have my own beliefs about not being naturally gifted and ancestral patterns of struggle, okay? They emerged naturally, okay? Now, these weren't thoughts I could think my way out of, but I had to remove them from my system and return to my infinite true nature. And when these patterns cleared, you could feel it. I felt it at the cellular level. My entire relationship with effort shifted. Instead of effort being about force or forcing external outcomes, effort became about maintaining my internal coherence. That was my effort. What's incredible is that when you are aligned internally, external creation becomes effortless because you're not pushing against reality. You are flowing with it. You're not trying to force outcomes. You are allowing them to emerge from your coherent state. But here's what really blew my mind. When you embody your authentic frequency, you don't just transform your own reality, but you become a beacon that elevates everyone around you. People started responding to me differently, not because I was trying to influence them, but because my coherent frequency was naturally uplifting. Opportunities appeared that benefit not just me, but everyone involved. This is when I realized that self-investment isn't selfish, but it's the most generous thing that you can do for yourself, for your family, loved ones, community, and for the world. Because when you embody your authentic frequency, you create a ripple effect that elevates everyone in your field. And the ultimate realization is that you are the source of your experience. When you invest effort into becoming coherent at the source level, everything that flows from that source becomes coherent as well. This is why self-investment is actually reality investment. You are not just changing yourself. You are changing the fundamental frequency from which your entire reality is generated. When your identity frequency is clear and coherent, maintaining that state becomes your natural way of being. You don't have to consistently work to create good outcomes. Good outcomes become your natural expression. And so understand this. The shift will happen when you stop putting effort into changing your external circumstances and start putting effort in changing the person who is creating those circumstances. True transformation happens when you redirect your energy from external manipulation to internal alignment. When you invest in your frequency instead of trying to force outcomes, reality naturally reorganizes itself to match that elevated state, or more specifically, to match that coherent state. So, this is the final piece, and listen carefully. Here's the practical application, okay? This means shifting from asking this question, how can I make this happen? Shifting from, how can I become the person who naturally attracts this? From external effort to internal investment, from forcing outcomes to embodying the frequency that creates them. And when I made this shift, I stopped being exhausted by my own life. I stopped working against reality and started working with it by aligning my internal frequency first. And the results, profound. Not just in terms of external success, but in terms of how I felt about myself and life. I went from feeling like I was constantly struggling to feeling like I was naturally flowing. And if you like the sound of this, if you want a piece of this, if you're ready to stop exhausting yourself with external effort and start investing in the internal alignment that creates effortless results, if you're tired of pushing against reality and you are ready to start flowing with it, then I invite you to start exploring, to work with me. Because I'm not going to teach you a new strategy or productivity hacks. No. It's about clearing the patterns that forced you into external effort mode and embodying the frequency that makes success natural and effortless. Because you and reality are not separate. No. You are the source of your reality. Okay? You are the source of your reality. When you invest effort into becoming coherent at the source level, everything that flows from that source becomes coherent too. So if you're ready for this level of transformation and prepared to invest in your internal frequency at the deepest level, then follow the link in my description to speak with one of my team members who I work with daily, and they do this identity frequency mapping work as well. But remember, it's time to stop trying to change your circumstances and start changing the person who creates them.